Hi, today we're putting the spotlight on the Dashboards app. Whether you have metrics, logs, or traces, the Dashboards app really helps you to convert the data that you have into insights in seconds. Now let me open up the app. When you open up the app, you get automatically an overview of all the apps that you already have in your environment. Now I'm here on the playground environment, which means you see a lot of additional dashboards that myself and my colleagues have created. You can also and always then filter on the ready-made dashboards. So there's a lot of dashboards that come with different apps, whether it's the Logs app, the Kubernetes app. It's a great way to get some inspiration. But now let me actually show you how to get started. What I would like to build with you is a dashboard that I've been asked for people to build. And the easiest way is to just click on the plus dashboard button. Now, what I always do as a best practice, we want to change the untitled dashboard to something that actually makes sense. So this is my demo dashboard, right? Perfect. In dashboards, like with any other or many other of our apps, you always have a filter on the top. That's great. Now, what's new with the dashboard app, you have the plus button where you can add additional widgets or tiles on the dashboard, whether it's Copilot, logs, metrics, events, problems, events, and so on. There's also the option to add variables. We'll do this in a second. And you can start with some pre-configured snippets. Now, what I always like to do as a best practice, I want to start with a Markdown because I want to explain to people that are looking at these dashboards later on what this dashboard is all about. This is a dashboard that will give us access to critical logs and metrics on our Kubernetes clusters, right? You have full Markdown capabilities, so however you like it, feel free to edit and then you can move things around. So, as it says, this dashboard will give you access to critical logs and metrics. Now, I often get the question, I have some metrics, how do I get them on the dashboard? Well, the easiest is just to click on the metrics tile. So with the metrics tile, you get the Explore Metrics capability. In my case, I want to do, let's say, pods, Kubernetes pod count. You can see you can search and you get all of the metrics that match that name. You can also filter by category, but in my case, I go with Kubernetes pod count. Any metric that is in Grail will show up here. Once I selected it, I click on Run and I get my chart. Now, this is now the average number of pods. In the Explore Metrics, I have additional options. I can, for instance, split by. In my case, maybe I want to split by the namespace name. I think this sounds logical, right? So click on Run again. And here we go. Now we have our pods split by pods. Now, you know, I'll do another thing. You see on the top left, next to the name of my dashboard, I can also collapse the last open so I get a little bit more real estate on my dashboard. What is important is, as you can see here, when you click away, you automatically get into the view of the dashboard. That means this dashboard now shows me the last 2 hours. I can switch the time zone filter. I can also add a filter on segments. I can also update and say how often it should be refreshed. Once you click on a tile, you can, again, if you're the owner and if you have edit privileges, you can always go back into the edit mode, right? That's how simple this is. Now, one more thing on this chart. If you click on visualize or visual on that tab, you have different visualization options, whether it's line chart, bar chart, area chart, categorical. You can see it always gives you the options that make sense for the data that we have. Now, in this case, for instance, all of these new geographical maps, the map thing, the connection map, the bubble map, they don't make sense for the data set. This is why they're grayed out. For me, I'll just keep it with the line chart, but please do me a favor and explore all the different options that you have here, whether it's around x-axis and y-axis configuration, the line types, also legends and tooltips. You can see here our team has really done a great job to make sure you can customize your charts to your needs. I'll keep it as it is. The only thing I will do is on the top, I'll give it a title, a name. So I call this number of pods per namespace. Cool. So that's the first thing I'm doing here. The next thing is logs are also very important. So I want to also get the logs on my Kubernetes cluster. So I click on the plus button. I go straight into logs. So when I click on logs, I get the logs widget here, the logs tile. By default, this gives me the last logs. And again, this is the easy way, the easy version. You can just point and click and say, what do I want? Do I want to filter on something? So for instance, I could say, I want to filter on Kubernetes cluster name. I could say for which cluster equals. Then it automatically gives me the options, AKS playground, EKS, and also some variables. Now that is interesting. So here's what I would like to do. I am actually now going with the EKS cluster. That's fine. So now I'm getting to see all of my logs that are coming in from this particular cluster with this particular name. But this is not really, in the end, what I really want, right? I want this dashboard not to only be used by me, but by anybody that wants to analyze maybe pods and logs in their Kubernetes cluster. How does this work? Well, we can make this customizable by adding a so-called variable. On the same plus button, you can now click on variables. Variables are pretty cool, and I'm doing two actually. I'm doing two variables. The first variable, I just go with the default here because this is another use case. Later on, I also want to filter on logs on a particular log level. So I can define a variable that I now call log level. And you can see here variables can either be a result of a DQL query. So you can query anything from DQL and then make it available as a drop-down box to filter. Could be code, could be a list of free text. Now I'm going with DQL because I want to get all of the different log levels. So what the data here does, it says, give me all the logs and filter it by, or summarize it by the distinct log levels, alert, critical, and so on. So that's great. So that's the first variable that we have. I want to add another variable, and in this one, I want to call the Kubernetes cluster. So again, I'm using DQL. That's what I'm doing here. I want to do this. I want to do fetch cluster DT cluster. Here we go. Let's do a quick run. Here we go. It seems entity name and ID. There's 3 clusters, and I only want to have the name. So I'm doing just not a filter, but I'm doing a fields entity.name. That's really what I want. So in this case, I'm fetching our Smartscape data. So I'm fetching our entity model, and I have a variable called Kubernetes cluster. Now, what can I do with it? Right now, I can select. But if I select, nothing happens because right now, none of these variables is referenced. So I can do 2 things. Let's finish my log example. If I click back on logs, if I click on the edit, remember, if you own that dashboard, you can always edit. I can now go in, and instead of having a hard-coded filter on that Kubernetes cluster name, I say I want to filter on that Kubernetes cluster variable, the $K8s cluster. Perfect. Run it. And here we go. So that means now every time I change my cluster, all of the tiles will automatically be updated. That's pretty cool. Now I want to do one more thing. I want to duplicate this particular query here. I want to duplicate it because it's nice to see all the logs, but maybe what I want to have first, I want to have an overview of, let me just go in here and click on edit again. I want to have the number of logs per log level, because I also want to use the log level on the top. So I can now say, give me the log level. So I want to additionally filter where the log level of my logs matches my log level. Right? That makes sense. Let's click run. So now I get only those, but I don't want to get everyone individually. I really want to have a comment. I want to do a summarize. So give me the sum of all of the logs in the selected cluster on that selected log level. 780,000, that's a lot. Now visually, I probably now also go to, let's say, I think a single value chart makes much more sense. Here we go. All right. I can then also do some thresholds if I want to, right? I can add a threshold and I can say, especially later on when I have error logs, let's say, I want to make sure that they show up in red if, let's say, if the value is greater than 500,000 1000, then I want to have it in red, otherwise I'll just keep it by default. So this is now an example. Let me go in. There's one more thing we need to do. If I now change the debug or the log level from debug to error, here we go, you can see that all of these tiles are automatically updated. On the Kubernetes cluster, same thing, right? I change it here. Both will be updated because this tile on the bottom right references both variables, the other one just the cluster. Now, I want to do the same thing for the metrics, because remember right now, these metrics show me the number of pods per namespace. So I can also go in and I say, I want to additionally filter on the cluster, on the Kubernetes cluster name that matches the value of my Kubernetes cluster. And here we go. Click on run just to validate. Perfect. I close it. And now every time I change that cluster, I also get all of these other, I get the pods filtered also by the cluster name. So this is a quick glimpse on what you can do with dashboards. Now there's so much more you can do. A good way to get started, if you are in the Dashboards app, on the Playground tenant, there's many great dashboards that have already been shared with you. For instance, the observability clinic that I did in December with our product managers, they actually showed some of the new visualizations, whether it's the honeycombs, whether it's the forecasting capabilities. They showed a couple of really cool things. Also what you can do on spans, because we're not limited to metrics and logs. You can also do span analytics, and they showed a couple of things you can do. Also some other dashboards that some of our colleagues put up there. In this case, it's the service health with SLOs, some different types of visualization. I also really like the problem analytics and forecasting. I think this is from Wolfgang, if I remember this correctly, analyzing some of the Davis problems and how they are occurring over time. So you can really see, you can analyze and put whatever you want on these dashboards. You can also make them, and if I now go back to my demo dashboard that I built, you can make them very easily configurable through variables. And last but not least, the dashboard that I've just created, this is a dashboard that only I have access to. So like with notebooks and other document-based types in Dynatrace, you can then always click on the share button and then share it with a particular group. I can also give you the share link. This is the way you make them available for anybody else. And yeah, if you want to download, right, you can always click on the three dots here. You can download, and then you can also easily import. Right, so hopefully this gives you a quick overview of the Dashboard app on how to get started. I know a lot of you are looking into using Dynatrace to convert the data that you have into answers. And Dynatrace and DQL allows you to do this, and the dashboards to visualize it. Do me a favor, check out some of the additional links in that video, because we have several videos that go much deeper into the dashboarding capabilities, into the different tiles, into the different options on how to visualize and how to do the layouting. And also, just play around with all the tiles that you have, because we only covered 2 or 3 today. There's so many more and so many more things you can do. With this, thank you so much. See you in the next video.